I want to first welcome everyone tonight to my talk with Ryan. When I started this idea and this program of getting people together to create dialogue, my idea was to have interesting stories be told in public. My main focus when I started my career was digital stories. I would get behind a camera and talk to people about their lives, and I would just post it and see where it landed. This last 2 years, I've worked on my education. I've done my master's, and I started to see how do we bring dialogue back into organizations and back to the public. And that's how this live forum idea came to me. And thanks to Ty and all the sponsors, I was able to have a part of my career and dream come true by doing these live facilitations. And tonight, I get to interview someone that I admire and I respect. And I'll tell you a little story before we get started. In 2009, when I started my life as an entrepreneur, I picked up a magazine and saw Ryan's face on there, and he'd won Entrepreneur of the Year, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I thought to myself, because he was within the age group that I was like, I could familiarize myself with. I was like, this is someone who's achieving something really, really great, and someone is recognizing him. How do I get there? And so it was that example and many others that I've taken in my life, and to take bigger leaps of faith and create ideas like this. And today I get to interview you and talk about that, which is a great pleasure. And I never shared that with you, so I thank you for your time. So we're going to begin. How I do my interviews, I don't prepare any questions. I pre-interview my subjects, and I ask about their lives. I take some notes, and then I have the live interview, and my curiosity carries on throughout the conversation, and you'll be witnessing that today. And after about 45 minutes, I'm going to allow the audience to ask Ryan some questions that they've always thought, wanted to ask, or even something that stems up from our conversation today. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you. So, Ryan, I want to first go right to the beginning. Talk about growing up. Where did you grow up in childhood and your household? Tell me about that.
So I was, I don't know if I've never done this before, so I don't know if I should be like looking at you or looking at
you can go back and forth,
back and forth,
so whatever you like.
Okay,
hey,
fine.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Rock it out. Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Burnaby. My parents still live in the same house that I was basically born into. I moved in there when I was 5 weeks old, so January of '69. I was born in November of '68. And yeah, so they still live in the same house. The carpet in the basement is the same.
Yeah.
There's all these, you go downstairs, there's stacks of records and there's dust, all this. They're not good with change, right? They're very much, if they don't want don't want to spend any money and don't change a thing. So so I was very lucky to be born into a very stable household. Again, no change. I moved in when I was six weeks old, 5 weeks old, and moved out when I was 22 or 23 when I got married. So very fortunate. The big thing for my dad is his house is both 6 or 7 minutes from his office. Now it's 3 or 4 minutes, but very again very stable, loving, supportive household. I feel very grateful for that. Yeah.
And siblings.
So interesting. So I'm the only child from my dad's second marriage. He had 3 children from his first marriage. Actually, one of the family, my wife's birthday a few years ago, he caught himself on video not mentioning his 3 children from his first marriage. So he said, "I have 3 children from a previous situation." I don't know what that means, but they're wonderful people. But he had 3 children from his first marriage. He actually ended up gaining custody of them in like 1965, 64, which of course is most unusual at the time. So for me growing up, my eldest sister, my half-sister, Lana, she wasn't even in the house at all. I had my other sister, Tanis, moved out when I was 5. My brother, Colin, moved out when I was 8. So, they're more like uncles and aunts to me, just given the age gap. And for all intents and purposes, I think I was sort of raised as an only child. I think it's also different that because it was the children of my father versus my mother. So I'm the only child from my mom. Yeah.
Okay, school. Let's talk like early age school. What were you like in school? Were you an academic person? Were you a sports like? You're a pretty tall guy, were you active? What was the deal?
Yeah. Okay, so at what point what are we talking? Elementary school
let's
or
talk
high school?
Let's talk high school, yeah.
High school?
Elementary's pretty awkward. I can attest to that.
And also, it just depends on the grade, too. I mean,
That's right.
It's interesting. Looking back, I was never a very good student. At certain points, I think I was, maybe grade 10, grade 11. And when you look back at report cards, though, grade 2, grade 3, Ryan can't sit still. He's jittery. He's always talking to someone. And I really think, and people joke about it now, but there's I have an attention deficit issue, and whether I diagnosed as ADD or not, whatever, I'm borderline. I've been sort of checked, but back in the day, they didn't really know what that was. They didn't really
stop giving that kid sugar. That's what they said. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I was quite sort of hyper. When I focused on something, if it's something that I liked, like in grade 11 law or accounting, I could do really well. But otherwise, I could be a little scattered. Improved as I went along. But grade 8, in grade 8, I almost failed grade 8. I failed science. I was with the wrong crowd. I smoked pot almost every day. And I don't even know if I inhaled. I don't remember being wasted or anything. It was with the wrong group. And I honestly, you look at that, you're 12, 13, you're with the wrong group, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, and I was going down the wrong path. And something switched. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was the fact that I failed science and I had to go to summer school and have that experience. Maybe that's what sort of just made the light bulb go off and go, okay, let's change gears here. And at that point, I really improved. I started hanging out with a different group of people. And it was such a positive shift, in my life at that point.
Was your dad strict? Your parents strict? You were.
Actually, I think they were very, very reasonable. I think for my dad, quite frankly, his focus has always been on the business. More so, he's not really a family guy. Like, he's been always very good to me, and he's good to my kids. But his focus was always on the business. And I think he had struck the right balance between strictness and responsibility and giving me some freedom as well. I always respected authority and what he said. I still am sort of intimidated by him. He's got this fierce look in his eyes. He looks at you that way, and you're like, okay, whatever you say. So he didn't. I think I was spanked once, and I probably deserved it. He didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
It was enough that I respected his. I wish my kids would respect me the way I respect him. That's another story altogether.
Generational thing. Yeah.
Very, very much so. I don't think he was too strict. He allowed me some space to grow and do my thing without. He would care. Look, you have to be home at this time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a reasonable time. I'll be home at that time.
Sure.
So, fantastic. And my mom, my mom's 79 now. She's never said one negative thing at me, towards me, about me. I mean, she's my biggest fan. There were the times where I deserved, a scolding or whatever. She couldn't even bring herself to doing that. Just very, very loving. Very fortunate to have the parents that I've had. Yeah, I have.
We're going to talk more about your dad in a little bit as well, talking about business, but early entrepreneurship or early pursuits of life, work. What were your first jobs?
My first job was at Night and Day. I was a busboy. I think
Night
I was
and Day.
15 or 16.
I've hung out there before.
I should look back, because my mom would drive me to work, so I wasn't driving yet. I didn't have a car, so I could have been 15, but that seems a little young. So I was 15 or 16. I'd work Saturday and Sundays, 9 or 10-hour shifts with one 15 or 20-minute break. Like, is this legal? Like, what's going on, right? Minimum wage, and then this one waitress. She accused me of stealing her tip. Like, I would never do that. Like, but it was there and it was gone. I promise. I did not steal a $2 tip. Okay, like I wouldn't do that. So there's some interesting experiences there. But that was it was horrible and great at the same time.
Sure. What did you do? What was your job?
I was just busboy. I was cleaning up like messes and dishes and things like that. It was, yeah, it wasn't fun. It wasn't glorious. No.
When did you know that you wanted to do something else? And let's talk about high school, going into college, going to university. I want to talk more about educational pursuits and then where your mind focused on what you wanted to pursue.
I think in terms of going from high school to undergraduate. I was the first person in my family to get a degree, and it was great. My parents just sort of laid this out as an expectation. It's like, okay, you go to high school, then you're going to go here. And I went to SFU. It's you can see it from my bedroom. It was just sort of this natural.
You and your dad have this proximity thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think
there you go.
I'm thinking, why would I?
I'm seeing a pattern. Yeah.
I wasn't rebellious. It's not like I wanted to. Not that people that go away to school are rebellious, but I was very much a product of this environment, stability. I didn't have any desire to leave, and things turned out great. But sorry, what was the question again?
What did you pursue?
So,
what did you focus on?
I think I was directed, and not in a forced way, but sort of laid out. The expectation is you're going to go on to university and you're going to do this and do that. Okay, well, that sounds great. I'll sort of follow that plan. So it wasn't a you're doing this. It was sort of some guidance and some gentle
a light push.
Nudging. Yeah.
And what did you take?
I did undergraduate in accounting and finance, and I took a lot of political science. I've always liked politics, political science, and, things like that.
When did you get involved with the business?
So, 92, 93. So my undergraduate degree was accounting. I wanted to be a chartered accountant. I spent the summer of 1990 at Ernst & Young, and I'd taken all the courses. I was actually a good student, and I was going down that path, and I was excited to do that. I knew that at some point I'd end up back in the company, so the thought was, okay, I'll go become a CA, and then I'll join the business. I actually didn't. I spent that summer at Ernst & Young. I really didn't like it, like the auditing and no.
We'll keep it down in here about auditing and all that stuff.
I think it relates back to that. I'm not really a detailed person. Like I did fine at it. And I had the courses and everything else, but I'm not good with details. I'm not. So I was going to go the CA route, but I looked and said, well, my dad at the time was 65, overweight, smoker, drinker. I'm thinking, I'm going to end up in the company anyways. My brother's already there. He's 13 years old. My half-brother, 13 years older than me. He's already in the company. So what's the best route? So I went to UBC and did my MBA, and it took a year. That's where I met Randy 20 years ago or so.
That's right.
And here we are today. But so I made a decision to do that because I thought it would get me into the company sooner. I actually, at the time, really was thinking I want to be in the company sooner rather than later so I could learn from my dad in case something were to happen to him. And the fact that he's vibrant and alive today and is doing as well as he does at 87 is fantastic.
He beats science.
I'm grateful for it every day.
Yeah. Well, so education-wise, you were poised to enter in the company, take a position. You had another sibling, and we're going to talk about siblings right now. Who has the family business here? A lot of people? And I'm assuming some people have siblings in those family businesses. Sometimes I never want to assume, but I'm assuming there is a hierarchical thing where this person will do this person will do this. You had an elder sibling, a half brother?
Yeah, half brother, yeah.
How did you get to where your position, and what happened to that whole situation? And let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think, so when I first joined the company, the idea was that I would work on the leasing side, dealing with existing tenants in the portfolio and managing that. My brother was more of a construction guy. He had started in the field, and then he went back to BCIT and worked his way up to construction management. So the idea was he'd do construction, I did leasing. Well, actually it was during graduate school. I remember being at UBC on the phone to a consultant, like we were buying some land in Delta, like I was actually making an acquisition while I was in school. I learned early on that I was jazzed up by development and buying land and dealing with clients and actually seeing a physical result to the work that I'm doing. So, and my brother as well. When I joined the company, I remember him sending me a note saying, I don't have time to look at this pro forma. Can you handle this? And my brother's great, very very smart, hardworking, loving, super guy, but very hyper focused and detailed and not wanting to make a mistake, a perfectionist. He's looking at different issues. Meanwhile, things are coming at me from every different direction, and I kind of thrive on that, like chaos. It's sort of organized chaos in a way. Okay, I'll take that, I'll take that. He found it quite overwhelming, and I think we worked together throughout the 1990s, 93 to 99. I loved working with him. We'd go to clients, he'd tell the client how he used to change my diapers, and we had these funny stories. And we worked well together, and actually landing some deals. It's so cool to do it with your older brother, who is my half brother, but I've always looked up to him and admired him. He's always been so great to me.
Yeah.
And I really actually look back on that period with very fond memories because we worked so closely and so well together. But over time, due to some sort of mental health issues and different things that he was dealing with, and I think, in fairness to him, just the nature of the business and having to make these decisions on big dollars, and I think he found it a bit too much. And over time, I was doing 80-90% of the work, and I said, look, I'm the younger brother. I don't mind doing the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
But look, I'm sort of running things here, and I'd go to this is.
What was his title? What was your title at that time?
He's like VP construction, I was VP development.
Cool.
And it was an awkward conversation to have because, as your older brother, you admire him, but
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, we're going to meet this client. Well, no, I can't. I've got this appointment. Like it just wasn't working after a while.
Yeah.
And it's like anything else. Sometimes things have to get really bad before they get better.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't force him out at all. He voluntarily, left to pursue other things. And that whole thing, there's no real acrimony. Like
Yeah.
you get along well to this day.
It was the right decision.
And it's the right decision. I really loved working with him, but I don't think the business would be where it is today if I had to consult with him on everything we've had to do in the past 20 years.
Here's a question. Years. Do you have any other family members work at Beedie Group? Besides from your father and yourself?
I have a niece that works she's like 28. She works in accounting, but that's it. No,
okay.
We've had a few other family members, but no.
So here's and because we talked a little bit about your early pursuits at Night and Day and all that stuff. I asked this question, and I'll have you all think about this question as well. Is being the boss and having a boss, and those two dichotomy of like thinking. Talk about being the boss first, and then talk about having a boss after.
So I love being the boss. I have sort of control issues. I just like things to be a certain way, and I don't sort of shy away from responsibility. I like it. I crave it, and I didn't like having a boss at a younger age. I remember when I worked at IGA during high school and university as bagging groceries and doing that sort of thing. We're at IGA and it's Christmas time. The place is packed and they have all these old buggies, these old carts. Customers are coming in and they can't even get a cart. I'm thinking, what is going on here? That you have someone who wants to come and buy your product, but you can't. I'm talking to the boss.
You actually cared.
Can you do something about this?
Yeah.
I'm running through apartment buildings to try and find buggies that are left. This is so basic. And not only that, they're ruddy and rusty and gross. What are you doing? And he wouldn't listen. And you've got to listen to the people that are in that case, I'm at a sort of lower level. They know what's going on in the 100%. Business. You have to listen to them and not act like you're this big boss and you're this authority. You are this authority, but listen to the people on the ground. That's how you grow. So that I wouldn't call it resentment, but sort of like, that's frustrating. But I've always had, and maybe it's a bit of the only child thing. I've always had a fair amount of, attention or authority to make decisions on my own. Yeah.
And now, having a boss, and so let's talk about like you have employees that run different departments. You are the boss. Your name's on the title there, and you have really competent people that run different departments. And I went on to how I audit people. I go through their social media. I go through their lives. I get to meet them. And I go on their websites, and I realize that on every chapter of or every division, you will see Ryan's name, and he is involved in every area. And I asked him about that. But how do you let go and let someone like Randy run a department, or let somebody else, like where do you let go and where do you get involved? Yeah. And how do you let people do that?
It's actually really interesting. I looked at the evolution of my position because for years I did the development, all the land acquisitions, dealing with clients, and quite frankly, I love that even more than what I do today. I love what I do every day, but dealing with clients and then actually closing a deal, and I think it's the affirmation where someone's saying, yes, I trust you, or I'm believing in you to deliver this product for me. I always love that feeling, and I kind of crave it because I don't get to do that as much. But I know that's not your question. I'll get to the answer, but that's an important thing. How do I let go? There's so much going on that the only way to move the business forward is to actually give your people that authority to an extent to make the decisions, and they know that they can come to me with anything. I try and keep an open door, but I can't be micromanaging. And I'm not a detailed person, anyways. You put someone in this position, we try and give some general guidelines and go to it, but I want to be always available and at the ready to provide that piece of guidance or advice or whatever as they need. I think the organization benefits from it, but the individuals do as well from their personal growth, knowing that they have this authority. They're almost running their own business within the business.
That's right.
And if I can't let them do that, then I don't have the right person in that position. That's the way I view it.
Let's talk about the person in the right position. There was a period in time where you weren't the boss, and your dad had a real big control over how things were run.
Yeah.
Let's talk about transition.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are family businesses where there's going to be a time when a younger generation, you know, there's planning that goes towards that, and there's that transition. Tell me about the transition from Keith to Ryan.
I can't speak highly enough about my dad when it comes to the issue of transition, and I don't know if it was so intentional on his part to say, okay, this is my plan, this is how I'm going to do it. But here's someone who started from nothing. He'd consult and we'd have discussions, great sounding board, but he never once overruled me. He did once actually, in 1995. He was away.
You remember the year?
No,
I love it. Yeah.
It was 95 or 96. He was away, and there was an opportunity to buy. Nissan had a building on Annacis Island, and it was up for sales, and it was December. They needed to close by year end. Like we had like 3 weeks, and maybe a 1 week subject, and it was a no-brainer deal. I looked at it, we've got to buy this. And he wasn't comfortable. He was away, and he hadn't even seen the deal, and he sort of said, no. Well, I mean, it comes back, we look at it, we missed it. And it was a fantastic deal. And one of my business partners, Rob Fioravento, who's one of my best friends, he ended up buying it with someone else. So at least someone who's close to me benefits from it. So that gives me some comfort.
Cool.
And I didn't rub it in my dad's face, but I think he knew at that point, okay, look, so here's someone at the time, maybe he's 67.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, his business is his life. It comes first. It comes before anything. It's business, Canucks hockey, and then family. Like that's how it worked in my house, and that's fine. I respect that. But he gave me that authority and that space to grow. Maybe that's part of the reason why I let other people in my company have that space, because he gave me that space. The only other issue that we ever argued about in a serious way, well, there's two, and they're really minute. One's minute, one's not. Our office was on Kingsway from 1954 to like 7 years ago. So we were in Kingsway for 53 years in the same building. And he just couldn't handle the thought of changing, of moving. Like, what's
same
that
carpet.
Like? I said, look, we've got 7 parking stalls, 30 employees, there's mold downstairs. Can't grow this business in this space.
That's right, yeah.
And he finally said, okay, and we battled about it. He finally agreed. In the new space, it was a building that we had owned for years on Gilmore and Burnaby. In his new office, I made it the same as his old office. Same carpet, same cylinder. We made it like this. And he was away for 2 months, and he walked in the door, and we're like, is he going to like it? Is he going to be comfortable? And he sits down, he settles down. And 2 days later, he sent me an email and said, I'm sorry for causing such strain over this issue. You were right. This is actually closer to my house. I was just afraid of change. Well, that's beautiful. Like, how can you be upset with someone? Not that it was, but when they acknowledge and they own, and it's a big issue. When people don't own their shit, it fucking pisses me off. Yeah. But he owns it. And he
does to me too.
And he said, and I said, thank you, that's beautiful. I mean, this is the kind of behavior that you try and learn from, or you try and model. When he makes that acknowledgement, and he owns up, he's vulnerable, and he's open and honest and says, I'm sorry, this is why. Great. The other thing is, you know, he used to organize the Christmas party. I've done it for about a decade now. And he came out, it was 2 or 3 years ago. How come, you know, I like to hand people their drink tickets, you know, and send them with the invite. How come you're doing it actually at the event? Well, so people don't forget them at home. Like this makes more sense. So that's the kind of stuff that we banter about. When it comes to bigger issues, we don't. I
can't wait to talk to him.
An example would be, and just as an aside, you know, we entered the Alberta market 5 years ago on the industrial side, and he'd say, "What are you doing that for?" What he'll question, in a good way, where it's, you know, you've got to make the case. And I know he's not going to but why are you doing?
Do you think he's learning from you too in your process?
Yeah, no, I think so for
sure.
You know, because he's so open.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably one of my biggest fans.
Of course,
if you ask him, I've taken his baby, this thing, and done with it. He's thrilled, but. He says, why are you entering the Alberta market? Here's why. Okay, I'm not, you know, he kind of, again, fearful of that change. Well, then I took him to Calgary 4 or 5 months ago to show him around some of these buildings we had done, and he's thrilled. Yeah. And so that, I mean, to make your dad proud, make your dad happy. Like, he's thinking about his first building in 1946, this woodworking shop off Fraser Street or Marpole, wherever it was, and he's looking at a 250,000 square foot TransCanada turbine facility. How did we get here? Right, and he's like a little kid. He's looking at it like, what are they making inside? There's this inquisitiveness that he's got, this curiosity. It's fantastic. So I get energy from him still.
Sure.
You know. Yeah.
How much is he involved in business right now? Because you know, sometimes people can't let go. Even when the son has taken the helm, you still got these ideas and you still have these, this practice, and you like to drive to work and all this stuff. Tell me about that. How much is he involved?
So he comes to work every day.
How old is he?
87.
I can't wait to meet him.
It's actually only been in the past couple months that I've sort of noticed, a little bit, there's a little change going on, but overall, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, he's one in a million in terms of so many aspects of his character and his work ethic and his drive. But my parents will go away the same time, late January to mid-March. They'll go 6 or 7 weeks to Hawaii, and then October they go on their trips. But other than that, he's there. When he's away, he's emailing me. He wants updates. When people don't send him updates, like this is his food, this is his fuel. What are we doing? What are we doing? So he'll come in. He works a lot on his foundation and giving money away, but his main area in the business is the property management side.
Sure.
So, for instance, today there's a weekly 2:30 property management meeting, and he'll sit in there where they're talking about existing tenants, repair issues.
Wow.
And he wants to, that's his thing. On the new development side or land, he's not involved at all, and he hasn't been. Again, I think the last deal that he did on a new building was like '93, and I sort of took it from there. So we've had a clear sort of definition of responsibilities. He loves the property management side, and he's very nostalgic. A lot of the older buildings that he recalls building, every project has a story. I think he feels that emotional connection to it.
For sure.
But he's a presence in the office. He's a force. He's funny. He's a lot softer in a good way than he was before. I think it's a vulnerability as you get older and knowing that you don't have that much time. So he's actually even a nicer human being and more the loving side of him that I always had growing up. It's there for almost everyone to see now. So it's pretty special.
Okay, there's something interesting going on here. So and I'm observing this and I'm feeling this. So I'm going to bring it up. There's a reason that you're sitting here today. And some people grow companies themselves, and then they hand it over to their kids, and then their kids will run it. Ryan has actually grown this business, and I want to talk about the scale of what you've done since you've taken over, because there's not just a reason that someone just gives you an award or that you do the work that you do or that your name is a recognizable name, that you're sitting next to me. You've done some really remarkable stuff. So now I want to shift. And we will talk later about the legacy of your father and yourself, but I want to talk about the work that you do today. I want to talk about the scale of that, because there is a reason that I'm sitting next to Ryan Beedie and that everyone is sitting here and watching this. And I want everyone to acknowledge that. Tell us what you do today and what you guys, all the different types of work that you guys do, because it's not just limited to like one area now. So what have you grown?
Absolutely.
Talk the scale.
Yeah, so if we look at, there's different aspects to our business. There's the property management, leasing, ownership part of the business. So when I joined the company, we had about 1.9 or 2 million square feet. Now that's 8.5 million square feet. And out of the growth, we built almost all of that. So we didn't really grow through acquisition because we like to build and we like developers' profits and margins versus just buying on the open market. But so in that time then since I joined, there's about 6.5 million square feet there, but that only tells part of the story because most of our work has been for owner users. So just to give you an example, we'll buy 100 acres of land, we'll subdivide and service the lots. Someone will come along and they'll want to buy 5 acres, they want to own 100,000 square feet. We'll do that for them. Or we'll put up a multi-tenant strata building and we'll sell those off, or multi-tenant building for lease that we'll lease out and maintain ownership. So we've built, I think in the past 20 years, a total of about 20 million square feet of space. So the bulk of our work has been for owner users, but our portfolio has grown significantly. That's in British Columbia. We still have a very significant land bank. Without a land inventory, we're kind of nowhere. So it's always a struggle to find more and more sites. And then we're kind of the leaders in our space, so we're the target. Everyone's sort of trying to gun for us. So I guess it's really much more competitive now than it was, say, 5, 10, or 15 years ago. We're in the Calgary market now. I want to go to Edmonton too, but we're in the Calgary market. And we're not going to go into that market and build big bulk distribution buildings because there's other people there that have got cheaper land costs than we do. We're going to go, how do we find our niche? How do we find our space there? And it's through doing build-to-suit projects for clients. But one thing that we've come up with about 5 years ago was large bay strata format for industrial. So historically, strata buildings like condos have been owned on the industrial side. They're small, 2,000 to 3,000 square foot bays. And I said, 7 years ago. I said, well, why don't we do 15,000 square foot units? Because if someone wants 15,000 feet or 10,000 feet, they actually can't own. It's too, the economies of scale are not there to actually build a small building. It costs too much. You can't find a small site.
Sure.
So we create this model, large bay strata. Our first building was 5 years ago. We sold it out before we even started construction. It was the biggest margin project in the history of our company, right? I actually remember my dad saying, what are you doing? This is a weird looking thing. Who's going to buy those units? Well, I didn't know exactly what we were doing, but it seemed like a good idea. Well, we nailed it. So we do a lot of strata like that in Vancouver now and in Calgary, where it hadn't been done before. And we have had big success with the first few projects there. So that's catering to owner users on the industrial side. 3 or 4 years ago, we started Beedie Living, which is our residential side. We have a party on Friday for our first tower in Coquitlam, which is having like a rooftop or top-off party.
We're all coming.
So something there. So we're redeveloping Station Square Metrotown with Anthem Properties. We've made significant acquisitions on the residential side as well. And of course, Randy Garg, who's here, runs our Beedie Capital Partners division, which does all sorts of things, but most of it is mezz lending to various companies, primarily in the tech sector, and Justin's here as well. Justin joined us recently in that division. So there's a bunch of things, and there's other aspects too. We don't want to get, we've got to stay sort of focused as well, but I also, so there's something shiny, let's go over there, right? There's a bit of that. I've got to be careful because I can get distracted.
So, I mean, okay, so when you, let's be honest, when you make so much money, you derive a lot of capital, you gain a lot of capital that you can invest then. Do you have say with, like, say Randy says, we found this really great deal. How much say do you have in that, or do you just let the expertise gain that? How does that work? And tell us some of the stuff you've invested in, because I'm sure we're familiar with some of those projects as well.
Sure. So, I think it's more we have a general sort of understanding of the space we want to go into, but then, Randy meets the clients, puts the deals together. He keeps me informed of what we're doing. We'll sit down maybe once every 2 weeks or so, if that, for 20 minutes, a half an hour, and we just go through the list. And if he wants, if Randy's comfortable, like I look at risk tolerances. If he's comfortable, I know I'm going to be comfortable.
Great. Great.
So I watch to see how he's feeling, and I really, again, it's about giving space and giving that direction. And if I'm overruling someone like Randy on more than one occasion, or someone in gym in my office, there's a problem. Like you're like, I don't want to be in that position, because you're basically telling someone, look, it's almost disrespectful. I know better than you, or you're no. Like we I don't think it's happened yet. Maybe Randy, have you proposed something where I've said no? I mean, it doesn't happen, and we haven't made a bad deal yet. Tell us
about some of the deals.
Knock on wood. So, a few of the early ones, I think Terry McBride's a good friend of mine. We've invested in Y Yoga. And
do you guys know who Terry McBride is?
Terry's
Network
Terry's
Records,
a great guy, and we have an investment in Network as well. We've got part ownership of Network. We've lent money to GrowthWorks. I don't know what I can disclose. I got to be careful, because don't say that, because that's a public
compliance
company.
is sitting right there.
I'm like, okay, my brain's going, okay, be careful what you say. So ask Ray. So this is the reason for this is that we have so much heavily weighted into real estate, and any development deal that comes along on the industrial side we can do, but I'm not going to go out and buy existing industrial buildings at a retail price when I'm so heavily weighted to that. Here's something that's totally outside of the norm, but Randy's very capable of managing it. We have to find other ways to reinvest. We're very fortunate to have tremendous cash flow coming off these businesses. We have to find other ways to invest that, and at the same time, it's about learning and growing and getting exposure to these different businesses. And can I talk about the wine one or not? Is that no? See?
We can just drink it. That's
the governor was there. See, that's good. See, there you go.
I love that.
That's why, at least, because I haven't
2 weeks.
had that.
Okay, we're coming back in 2 weeks.
I'm glad. I'm getting better, right? I'm getting better at not. So there's a variety of different things. Go to the website. I think Randy's posted some things on the website.
Okay, cool.
You can see.
Do you? Where do you want this? Where do you want your company to be in the next 5 years?
It's interesting. We had a branding exercise yesterday with about 15 of our people, and there's a certain, I get it, there's certain people in the company that are yearning to know, okay, what's the plan? Like, where are we going to be in 5 years? And I can give a general sort of idea and a broad overview of where I want it to be, but I don't know. And we didn't have a 5-year plan exactly 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And we got here without having this. I'm not going to say we're going to build this many units of this much. Well, who knows what the market is? And you're going to build those units just because you've set this goal of building those units. Real estate is so opportunistic.
Sure.
We want to be we're a relatively under-levered company because we always want to be able to take advantage of opportunities that come up. But to answer your question, I want to maintain our dominant position on the industrial side in Metro Vancouver, always being on the lookout for land opportunities. We're getting more creative because we have to. Like, for instance, there's a site we wanted to buy in New Westminster 5 years ago. We got outbid by the Port Authority because they bought it to preserve industrial land. Well, it would have been industrial anyways, but whatever, fine. We've done a deal with them on a long-term land lease. We're developing the site out almost the same way we would have had we owned it, but it's a really creative structure. We're having to really be, that's one of the things I love about our company. We're very flexible and versatile. If an opportunity comes up, we think, how can we find a way to make this happen? Like, here's the end goal. How do we get there? And this is something we can do versus institutions and other funds that can't be as nimble as we do. Partnering with, Surrey City Development Corporation in Surrey, they bought a bunch of land from the provincial government, industrial land, and I was a little bit pissed at the time going, we didn't get a chance at this. Now you're competing with the private sector. But after, complaining for about 6 months, we thought, okay, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And now we're doing some JV stuff with them. So we're having to get really creative to maintain that dominant position. Of course. That's the bread and butter. That's the foundation of everything.
Give a little to get a little.
For sure. I want us to have even more of a presence in Alberta, firmly established in Calgary. I'd like us to enter Edmonton. And the residential side, by then, we'll have several projects that we're never going to be like the biggest residential builder, but leveraging the name and the relationships we have to have some great projects that we can be very proud of. And the Beedie Capital Partners side, I can see that continuing to expand as well.
So, we talked about the business side, and because I want you guys to be able to engage with Ryan right now as well. I'm going to ask you a few more questions about, there's some people that do really well in business, and they concentrate on business, and they grow their business, which you've done very, very well, and you're coming up with bigger ideas, having the right people in place to do that. But there's also this component that's also the humanistic side of us, and I believe strongly in this, and this is why I do what I do, is to be able to create interesting things for people and opportunities for people. So let's talk about the money side where you give back. And I want to do the most obvious one right away, is the Beedie School of Business, and it's at your alma mater too. Talk about that. Let's talk about that very openly, and I'm very impressed by that side as well. So let's talk about that.
There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about it and think about how fortunate we are to be in a position to have donated the money, to have our honor to have our name on the school.
How much was it that you gave? It was $22 million. $22 million. That's not a little figure.
It was like $10 million payment and then $1.5 million over 8 years. I think that's how it worked out. Actually, I was in Hawaii. It was January, and I was actually I was like, oh God, I've got to email SFU. I was walking from where I was staying down to see a friend, and I sort of outlining the terms of how we would do it. Within 10 minutes, there's a response like ding, 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 like great, like you made everybody's day, and it. A couple of things. I think that the basis for it was I've spent some time with Joe Siegel, who I really care for and admire. And learning from him, and he's saying, Ryan, he actually looked at he understands our business. He was estimating cash flow and stuff. He actually almost nailed it. He's like, okay, what's it for? You pay something to yourself and have a decent lifestyle. You pay off the bank, and then there's extra. You give back. So I've learned a lot from him on that side, and sort of thinking, okay, what is possible? What's the how far can we do this? And Seymour Schulich had an article in Canadian Business Magazine. Before the donation, he's saying that substantial Canadian families say they give back, but they don't to the extent that they could.
It's true.
And I took it as a personal challenge, saying, well, what, I think he's right, and what can we do? And I thought, SFU. I went to school. It's one of the only schools in the country that hadn't been named. So I called the woman in advancement I know, Kathy Daminato, and I said, I've got this idea. Don't get too excited. We're like early stages. I got just this idea. It was December at the time, and she just, of course, like. Freaks. I said, calm down, we got to see. So I talked, and this is one of the things I take to my dad. He's got a different recollection than I do, but I'll tell you the true story. So I've got this idea, what do you think? Well, how much is that going to cost? And I said, well, I think probably X dollars. Well, wait till I'm dead. Wait till I'm dead. I thought, actually, no, the opportunity might not be there and you're dead. And second of all, I want you to be here to see it. I want you to experience this with me. Forget it. We're actually going to do this. And my CFO he cinched it because my dad went to school on the west side. He went to McGee, but his parents lived in an area that I don't think they could afford. I think they were living a little bit beyond their means. He went to high school with Bill Sauter. So Sauter School of Business at UBC.
Sure.
My dad's this Burnaby guy, never part of the establishment,
Yeah.
you know, marched to his own drummer.
Yeah.
How about your own? And that was it. When he put those two things, and he was on board, because obviously I need and want him on board for something so substantial.
Sure,
for
yeah.
sure. So that's his recollection is Ryan proposed this idea, and 15 seconds later said yes, and we're on it. So there's two, but he can have that story. That's totally.
I'll have that with him. I'll have that.
He
with
can
him. Yeah.
he can have that recollection, but to give back the feeling that it provides me to know that we have done this and we're doing good, and we get letters from students who benefit from the school. I mean, I was very fortunate to grow up I grew up in a working class actual neighborhood with a nice house. So I had a lot of friends who were very poor and lived in social housing projects. So I benefited from that. But overall, I was very fortunate to come from a family of means. Other people don't have the same opportunities. What can I do to give someone the educational opportunity that I had? And that feels wonderful. So getting letters and being a part. There's not a day that goes by. It's a no. Like I look back, I'm so grateful that we made the decision, but it's there forever,
Yeah.
and it fuels within me that desire to give back. Like I love making money, but I actually love giving it away even more than I love making it.
Yeah.
And isn't that wonderful? Hopefully if I have a long life, I plan on doing more and more and more on that side of things, because it's the right thing to do. It feels good, and all of that. Yeah.
Well, it leads me to my next question before I open up to the floor. But, my work specifically, again, in the last 2 years, is concentrating on people's legacy, and what they leave behind, what they established today, and because you've continued a legacy from your fathers, that transition we talked about. What is your legacy? What do you want to leave?
I just turned 45 last week. I'm still thinking I'm 25, right? So legacy, like how old am I? Whatever. I think that we did the branding exercise yesterday. I just want to, when I leave this earth, to leave it in a much better place, or not much better, in a better place than it would have been had I not been here. So whether that's through donating to SFU or providing employment, building these buildings that actually. When clients of ours sit me down and say, when you did this deal with me and I was this growing business, you took a bit of a bet on me by building this building and leasing it to me. I've done so well because that is so rewarding. So to know that we've touched companies along the way and their employees and helped the economy grow and done, it's about giving to others in that respect, not giving, but creating the circumstances by which other people can flourish. I want to be known as a very caring, sensitive, loving sort of employer, creating opportunities for our employees. I'm going to create our own little REIT and buy some buildings so that our employees can have access to some of the things that we do. We've done a little bit of this over time, but in a more structured, orchestrated way to say, what, I want everyone along for the ride. It makes me feel really good to know that employees of ours, some guy working in the construction side, is getting a dividend check every month.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Right? Feels good. So that's what I want my legacy to be, is someone who cared about other people and had a positive impact and respected other people and did well by just did good, right? That's what I want.
I think he's definitely on the right path, and I first thank you for this time. What I want to do is engage with the audience. This is what I love to do. And put up your hand. Kevin, please ask Ryan a question. Everybody ask a question. Don't ask me any questions. No, I'm joking. Please, go ahead, Kevin, yeah.
So Ryan, what's the biggest mistake you ever made? How did you rectify it?
That's an excellent question. It should have been, it's what I ask people when we're going to hire them. I would say the pursuit of the hockey team. There's some positive things that came out of that, but looking back, like if you had to do it all over again, that was a mistake to maybe go down that road. And so the story there, just to elaborate, we were first approached on this when McCaw was going to sell a half interest in the team. And my first look at it was like, this isn't our thing, sports team, it's an ego motivated, it's not what we're all about. But it's a significant enough transaction that I took it to my dad. My dad's a lifelong Canucks fan. He had not missed, until 10 years ago, and being in the city, other than being out of town, he had not missed a Canucks regular season home game like ever. Like I'm talking the most avid fan. So I took it to him and said, yeah, we've been approached on this. I don't really like the concept, but what do you think? He was 78 at the time. His eyes lit up. Oh.
Let's buy the
Well, why
Canucks.
don't you look into it? I looked into it. Deal actually made sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm going, this makes sense. I put it together with Tom.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the biggest mistake. You know what? Maybe it wasn't a couple of things. I'm glad that we didn't get it for other reasons. I don't think my family life would have survived the way it has had we got it. I try and look for the silver lining. I don't think the business would have done as well. But maybe the mistake was not pursuing that. I mean, the mistake was not when we were in the negotiations and we're trying to get the deal done. I kind of recognize it, but not to the extent that I should have, is keeping the middleman happy. So, we had the big public lawsuit and McCaw and Francesco and the whole thing, but really what it came down to was Stan McCammon, who was running the team and working for McCaw. Had we said to Stan, look, we're going to buy the team, but do you want a 3-year contract, X dollars, tie him up, make sure he's fine with us, because he was being coy. I'm not sure what I want to do, whatever. Well, we didn't, and I let Tom lead the negotiations. He's got more experience buying businesses, but we kind of missed that. And had we actually nailed that down, the deal would have closed, because we had a term sheet signed. We're going through due diligence. They were being really unfair on some terms of the transaction, so not to get into details too much, but there was probably accountants in the room. They were treating unearned revenue and prepaid expenses differently. I mean, the same thing on either side of the balance sheet, but if the cash had been received, they wanted it, but if the cash hadn't been received, they didn't want to give us credit. So they were being unreasonable. And that was just a way to delay and do what he was doing. So the mistake was not taking care of the middleman in that transaction. My answer developed as I talked to you. That's the actual mistake, is missing that gap. And I've learned from that since. I thought I knew it beforehand, but I obviously missed it. And that, and actually going through the trial process, I did that so I could support Tom. He was going to be the majority owner. And I wanted to be loyal to my partner. He'd done all this work. But what a terrible experience! Like we're on the we're the plaintiff, but to go through and be on the stand for 6 days and being grilled and not sleeping and what's
in the
this
media.
all for?
It was all over the media.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And my kids
Yeah.
are getting razzed at school because of the Canuck thing. I feel sort of badly that I dragged my family through that a bit, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't there to support Tom, he'd done the work. What kind of partner would I have been?
Sure.
It would have been disloyal.
That's
like
right.
He did the work. So I don't know. The mistake was not handling the Stan McCammon thing correctly. I think that's maybe the biggest one. I made lots of mistakes, but that's the most glaring one.
Very honest. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Please, yeah.
So you mentioned what the questions you asked to people you're interviewing. But what do you look for in an employee? And another question: if you were to put everything on the table now, what would be your full worth of your company and your brand?
So I won't answer that. That's because I actually don't even know what the correct answer is. And
$1 billion.
It's and it's private. I appreciate you asking. We're a private family company, and
That's
it's
right.
not. It's substantial. I mean, I look at him like, wow, really? Like it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we're quite proud of that. And again, just to. That allows us to make these investments, to give back, to do these things. There are other there are other people I know, and it frustrates me. There's other developers I know, other people that they're more substantial than we are. They're bigger than we are. I know that for sure. And I don't see them doing really anything. I'm like, and I don't want to be judgmental, but what's wrong with you? Like,
That's right.
Look, there's such a capacity to do good. It's and they miss it. But that's I don't want to be judgmental. That's negative. What I look for. In people, there's so many things. I love energy, right?
Yeah.
Erica, I saw you. So Erica just joined our company in HR, and I've only met Erica twice. But we had an interview, I don't know, a month or so ago, and I love the energy and the passion. I'm just thinking, like, I can be a highly energetic person. There's people around me that are like, they get gung ho and they get fired up. I get fired up.
Right.
So. I want energy and enthusiasm and passion and going, we can do this and we can do that. It just lights me up. So that's one thing. Self-awareness is huge. People that can say, I screwed up on that, or, I could be better at this. My friends would say, here's why I'm like this way, but being aware of one's own flaws. I could give you 10 examples of things that I'm not good at, or that I'm not, I can tell you things I'm good at, but I have flaws. Well, people that can't do that, like in an interview, what would your wife say? What would your friends say your greatest flaw is? Well, someone sits there and hums and haws, they can't come up with something. At that point, I'm done. Like, I am done. How can you not step outside yourself? Is your ego so big, or you're that insecure you can't be that self-aware? That's a huge button for me. So people that are self-aware, highly energized, passionate, and will be loyal to our company, because I think we're good to people. We have, my dad created this culture. He's very, doesn't like change, but it's very, people in his circle, very loyal. They had 50-year employees, people 40 years, 30 years, decades in our company. You're great people, you treat them well, and you don't want them to leave. Like, why are they going to leave? Like, we've done something wrong in that case. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I'll add to that, because I remember us talking, and you talked about there's a component to their HR, is the psychological testing.
Yeah.
And you want to talk a little bit about that?
We have a psychologist, David Simpson, who assesses people through it's called a TIIS, this inventory of skills. He can describe people as well as I can, people that I know, he can describe them as well as I can just by reviewing the assessment. So it will give you insight into, people can sort of interview, they can sometimes put on a bit of a charade interview. You can't hide,
people.
You can't hide behind. He'll say, look, no, there've been a couple of times where he's saying, I know you want to hire this person. You cannot. You are not hiring this person like this way, and here's why. We have an investment in another business with a friend of mine, and David called my friend one day and said, your manager in Atlanta, I'll bet you he's stealing from your company right now. I go, Are you kidding? There's no way he's stealing from the company. Goes down. Stealing from the company. The psychological profiles show this person is a cheat, they're a fraud. It's not perfect. Of course it's not perfect, but it's an important tool that we use in assessing people. And even people that you're going to hire, you can understand, okay, they could be a little bit like this. This is how you have to manage them. This is what's going on. It's a little scary, actually, at the same time, because to have this person who can read other people, how do you, I don't know, it's a little bit disconcerting, but it's an important...
Have you taken the test?
I've taken the test, yes. I think I failed the first one, but I think I did better.
Oh, did you, Randy? You took the test?
Randy actually had a...
I'm coming in, I'm taking the test.
I will say, Randy's assessment was fantastic, and Erica's, actually, I don't know if Erica took the test, because she worked with Kate already.
She's admitting to it now.
She had taken it, you took it before, right, when you were at your other, so no one comes to work for us unless they've done well on this test.
Great.
But
shockingly accurate.
It is shockingly accurate. Randy,
it's very interesting.
Randy spent some time with David.
No redos?
No, I
You redid yours?
I redid mine.
I can't wait to read yours. I want to read yours.
I know how to
manipulate.
Probably David won't be honest with me. I'm like, look, just give me I want the bad stuff. I want to know. No, I see someone who just has the world by the tail. The world's their oyster, and they're going to go out and get it. Okay, you're blowing smoke. Like, that's fine. Give me he won't. He doesn't want to offend me because he's worried that he won't work. That's fine.
There's no math on this test, right?
There's no math.
Okay, good.
There's no math.
Good to know.
No.
Cleo, that's answer your question. Who, please, anyone else engaged with that? I'll go to you, and then I'll go to you.
You talked about your dad and how he said business is first, and then Canucks, and then family. I was curious to find. You talked about your family a little bit. I was curious to find out how you balance that, because that's a major, thing, business and then family. And I don't know, you were married, you said at 23?
Yeah, I've been married for 21 years. So
okay, so that's kind of major. So
yes.
I'm curious, how did you balance
that?
Yeah,
that's an excellent question. Not to be too self-critical, I think I balance it better than he did, but it's been so much easier for me than it was for him. I do find that my family is very important to me. I love my kids and I love my wife. I love my family, but I can be a little bit selfish and self-centered when it comes to the things that I want. So, particularly, I've been better as I've gotten older. I don't work as many hours as I did, but when I was in my 20s, we lived in Port Moody, 3 little kids. My life was just work, come home, we'd deal with the kids, get them to bed, and I'd bring files home every night, all week. I worked a lot, and I didn't actually have any time for me or my health. Like I didn't work out. I was a little bit overweight. The family, though, I think, especially when the kids were little, I did invest a lot of time. So it was work and kids. And as I've gotten older, it's been work, me, and kids. So they still play an important role. My kids are older now, 19, 17, and 14. And I've coached, baseball. I did all that kind of thing. Could I have done more? You could always do more. I've got friends that I think were more invested in their family than I was, and I try and take stock of that. But I also know for me, again, it's maybe that only child, self-centered kind of thing. I need to be doing sort of what I want to do in order to be happy. Lee Trevino said, he's a golfer years ago, it's like, if you're going to be really good at something, you got to be kind of selfish. I don't use that as an excuse. I just think that's the case. I think my kids would say that I've been a pretty good dad. Like not amazing, but I think they love me. They're happy. We've got a great relationship, and I show up to all their different events and things. But a lot. I go to a lot more things than my dad went to. So there's an improvement in that respect. I've got a lot of responsibility, and they rely on me. But I have a lot of employees that rely on me too, and they have families and people that were. So it's hard to spread it around. Like you're sort of wanted here, you're wanted there. And that's okay. It's a responsibility that I take very seriously, and I don't know if I'm answering your question,
what
but
about with your wife? I'm curious because that relationship has been 21 years. You said I imagine it's evolved. The business has evolved. So, how's the communication changed and the responsibilities?
Yeah, I give her a lot of credit for putting up with me and the way that I can be. She there were some struggles, especially earlier on, like I'm doing my thing, I'm so focused on this and maybe not on her, but she knows me well enough that I not only need my space to do the business, but partly against the only child thing, I love my alone time too. Like I need it. Other people don't like to be alone. I love being alone. Like sometimes, like if she's out, the kids are out, and I'm at home with a bottle of wine, Karen, like we like to drink our wine, and I'm reading the paper, doing my work. I cherish those moments. I love those moments, and it makes me more likely to, or better, at investing with her when the time comes. But she's been very understanding, and even more understanding as I've gotten older. It's the way we've grown together. So she's been wonderfully supportive, encouraging, and actually more so now than even years ago. It's hard. 3 little kids, and there's a lot going on there. But I give her a lot of credit for creating the environment that's allowed me to have the success that we've had. I think she deserves a lot of the credit for that, because had she not been there doing that and taking care of that, it wouldn't have been. That's the platform upon which I'm launching from. And if she's not doing that, or if she'd been a shitty mom and I had to take the kids like my dad took my siblings, like how could you be doing double duty like that?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's easy to take things for granted. You go through your life, and day to day you kind of just assume things are the way they are, but you pause and take a step back and look at what you've got, and look at those people in your life that impact you and do such wonderful things. You think, what if that person wasn't there? Wow, that'd be a disaster. Well, they deserve credit when they're there too. So, thank you for asking that. I appreciate it.
Please, you, and then I'll go to Farzan after. Yeah,
Sure.
please go ahead.
So from personal to business question, you've obviously done extremely well in the industrial space. How's that you kept yourself away from residential space? And do you think you're a late entrant?
Yes, excellent. Maybe that's another regret. Sometimes it's not the regrets of things that you did, but what didn't you do, right? It's like cost versus opportunity. Cost, I try and think that they're the same thing. I think that, and it's being the product of my dad, not liking change. We had maybe a bit of parochial kind of thinking, like we just do industrial. So there was a moment, maybe about 8 years ago, we were doing a building for a customer. They had a property downtown. They wanted to move to Coquitlam, so we were building a building for them in Coquitlam on a site we owned. And we had the chance to buy their site, which was being rezoned to residential. But we didn't have any residential people. We had no knowledge, no nothing. So we just passed an opportunity. But it turned out it was a great opportunity. And I thought, there's going to be more and more of these sort of things coming about. We need to actually have an infrastructure and a group that can take advantage of that further. We have a lot of existing industrial sites that in and of themselves will be converted down the road to residential. So I think we should have done it sooner. I think I made a mistake by not doing it sooner, but I'm glad that we've taken the step. And yeah, we are a late entrant, and I don't think we're going to have any kind of massive advantage over others in the marketplace. But for me, part of it is the motivation to learn and to grow and to have that legacy, and not just having industrial buildings. Well, let's have some high rises too, and it creates an opportunity for people within the company, especially younger people that join our company. They want a variety of work. They want a different experience. Industrial is great. Well, I can do industrial. I can do residential. It gives us a broader range of experience. So I'm glad we've entered, and we have lots of opportunities there that we're pursuing, and I'm excited about it. And just an aside, my dad, this Austin project in Coquitlam, he'll go out every 2 weeks with Rob Fioravento, who's a part owner of the project, and Rob I mentioned earlier. my dad loves going to this site, you know, and you go into my dad's office, we have a video camera at Station Square at Metrotown on Kingsway.
Oh, nice.
I actually used to, it's a funny story, when I worked at the IGA, we were worried that when the Save on Foods opened, we'd all lose our jobs because it's non-union competition or they're cheaper or whatever. This was 1986. Well, it turns out now Eric Carlson and I, we own the site, and we tore down the Save on Foods that I was worried about when I worked at IGA. Like, oh, great. But my dad's got this camera on the site. Like, come in, look at this. Look at these guys. They're building this. Look, he loves seeing the employment. And he is so jazzed up by the residential side because he started building houses back in the 50s. So he's got residential in his DNA. He loves it. And for me to see him energized and be so excited about what we're doing, he's like a little kid. And this is what I think part of the reason why he's living so long. You have to purpose. People have purpose, they live longer, right? And he gets up every day and he wants to come to work. And he can never retire. I never wanted to retire. And for us to be doing things that jazz him up, or to take him to Calgary and go through a building and, oh my gosh, I love that. That gives me energy, and it makes me feel really proud of what we've done.
Amazing. For Zana, and then I'll have one last question in the back. Yeah, please.
So I make it a little bit personal. What is the most significant life learning that you've had today?
Wow.
Let's get deep. Let's get deep.
Wow.
That is personal.
What's the most significant life? I want to answer that, but I don't have an answer at this second. But if we ask the next one, and then maybe I'll come back to it, because
So-
I don't have like this. I'm sure that I'm sure I can come up with
So I'll have
something
two more
good.
questions and back to Farzana.
Right,
So
right,
you
well,
and then
that'd
Fraser.
be a good one to
Please
finish
go
off
ahead.
with,
Yeah.
too.
You have one too? Okay,
Life
we'll
learning.
have a few more. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
What sort of advice do you give to family business owners where you don't see a natural succession plan?
I haven't been asked that before, and I guess when I'm younger, you don't think about it. But then as I get older now, I look and I think, okay, well, actually, I did think about it years ago. I'm kind of not that I'm lying, but I look at my kids, and out of my 3 kids, there's only one that I think could, I think, if she was interested, sort of take the reins. And I had her when I was 30, so my goal for her would be to go on, get an education, go work somewhere else. I mean, I would have preferred that I went, and work somewhere else and then come back in, but just the circumstances were such I couldn't do that. Fine. In her case, I'd like her to go out. If she wants to come back, great. And if she doesn't, then hopefully I live a long life, and then maybe convert to a REIT or something, and they can take shares and have a proper governance model. I can carry on with different management. So I'm not fixated on this 3rd generation thing. If it makes it, great. If not, so be it. And so I hadn't been asked that question before about advice to other businesses. I think 2 things, and you didn't ask this, but I think we've benefited so much by, I think it's a real challenge for other family businesses where there's multiple people involved. We've been very lucky that, I think partly because my brother did leave the business, it's a family business, but really it's my dad and then me. It's been a fairly seamless process, and it's not complicated by all these other elements. If my brother was still in the business, that adds a whole new level, so it's a whole new challenge. But if someone has a business and their next generation is not interested, well, sell the business and create a structure where maybe there's some benefits that flow to the kids. But I think the worst thing to do is to force a child or someone who has a different passion and have them feel obligated to get into a business situation, and they can't be who they want to be or who they're destined to be because they're born into this thing. Like, that's wrong. You're robbing someone of something, and they're probably not the best person to do it because they wouldn't have the passion behind it anyways. So we're very lucky that we've made it this far, and if we go to the 3rd generation, great. And then you start thinking their kids and divorces and this, that. It's a bit of a headache. You're like, okay, it's great. There's a lot of freaking responsibility too. How are we going to make this work? But that's not a complaint. We're very grateful. Hopefully, did I answer the question okay? Is
Sure.
that okay?
Fraser, please go ahead. Yeah.
What are some of the things you're most passionate about on the giving back side to the community?
Yeah, fantastic. So I find myself really drawn to causes that involve women, especially those who are disadvantaged and have had difficult situations, and kids, kids that are born into, again, circumstances that they have no control over. I mean, again, I was very lucky to be born into a loving family. Other people are not. So I think people that have those struggles, my wife co-chaired, or she chaired a capital campaign for facility, Powell Place, formerly called St. James Society Powell Place, in the downtown east side for women who are seeking shelter. I mean, these are people that are in the worst circumstances you could imagine, and that, like, I look at those and go, how can this be happening in our, in our country, in our world, and people with mental health issues, all that stuff. That really resonates with me. And actually, sometimes it's the non-sexy, Children's Hospital is fantastic. I give a lot of money to Children's Hospital, but they've got a ton of people lining up to give them money. And maybe it's also the Burnaby thing, and it's my dad being, not part of the establishment. I'm drawn to what's the kind of, less sexy kind of thing. I've got a fellow I know who came to my office 2 weeks ago, and they're building a home in the North Shore for women who struggle with addiction. And again, some people get really uncomfortable around that. I personally have not. I haven't. I'm not an alcoholic. I haven't had a drug addiction, but I've had circumstances in my life where I have an empathy and an understanding. This is not something people choose. It's so ignorant to think someone chooses this. Who would choose this? It comes from a place of caring and empathy. So these are women, and if you can help them, well, they're more likely to be taking care of their kids. So the benefits all the way through society are huge. So I find myself drawn to women, especially those who are disenfranchised or have had difficult circumstances, and children, those who are the most vulnerable, and things that are not as maybe off the beaten path, a little less kind of sexy, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Right here, and then we're going to get to the last question about the deep thinking here. There we go. Please go ahead. Yeah.
How do you go about hiring your direct reports? And assuming for a minute that you are not, say, the son of the founder of the corporation, how do you get them to respect you and believe you and consider you the leader?
Yeah.
Get them to continue to work for you for long? What is it that you got to do to get that magic sauce working fine?
Yeah, I think that was maybe, I kind of felt maybe that was an issue, because when I was in my 20s, I didn't have the authority that I do now. But I think, to answer the latter part of the question, I think just by looking at how the company progressed and the confidence and the performance, people look, and they may be way older than me, but they're going, okay, this is working, and they had belief in what I was doing, and it was successful, and I consulted with them on all sorts of things. I think, quite frankly, my dad and I have a bit of a different philosophy, and I think they found it a bit refreshing when he did amazing things, don't get me wrong, but I was even more sort of customer focused and not nickel and diming. To me, the reputation was everything. So I think a lot of the long-term employees, they actually rallied behind me right away. So I've never had any issues in that respect, and I'm very grateful for that. Can you remind me the earlier part of the question, because I have the answer, but I forget exactly the first part.
Yeah, the early part, but how do you go about hiring?
Yes, okay. So this whole idea about being the smartest person in the room and all this, at a certain level, everyone's really, I think, quite intelligent. So it's not, so much about being the smartest person. It's being open. So, and different ideas. So there may be instances where it comes to a certain topic, maybe I'm the smartest person, I've got the best answer, but there's going to be other times where I don't. And so it's not a matter of who's smarter, but being open to the best ideas. And I try to create an environment where we're going down a path, but if there's new information that comes in, or someone says, hey, you know what, I know you're doing this, but Ryan, I think you should be doing this, I will change my mind like that if I think that's the better call. Leaving ego aside, it's not like, okay, I've taken this position, so I've got to stick with that. That is disastrous. It's disastrous. And this, again, it comes back to empowering people. They need to feel like they can come in and tell me and call bullshit on me. I want them to challenge me. I want them to say, you're wrong. Or not in that way, but in a nice way. Hey, I think there's a better way, because I'm human. I'll get my backup. I don't get my backup either. But I want an environment where people feel safe to share their ideas and collectively come with it. And we're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. So I want to hire people and direct reports who are not afraid to question me or challenge me, who aren't afraid. To the extent that they are, I don't want that. Bring it on, because I'm not going to get the best out of them. I don't have all the answers. I try and get the best answers from the other people. I am no smarter than they are. I can do math faster than me, but there's other areas where they're smarter than I am. So we all have the same overriding objective, and that's to make sure that our customer is happy and that the brand and the reputation of the company is kept intact. How do we get there? What's the best way to do that? And whoever comes up with the best answer, they can do it. I don't want the credit. I don't need the credit. I'm in a fortunate enough position that I don't. I understand why sometimes people do, but let's have the best solution. I don't care where it comes from, and please challenge me. I want to be challenged and questioned.
And I will let the last question be answered.
When I was younger, maybe in my 20s or even into my 30s, I could be a little bit judgmental, kind of, looking at a situation or looking at a person and sort of, not overtly, but sometimes inside me I could maybe be passing a bit of judgment or making a decision about them or what have you. And I look back at that person, maybe who I was, not that I ever did anything wrong or verbalized anything to anyone, but how I used to maybe look at people or situations. And I'm like, who is that person? It was so wrong. Like, you have no idea what someone's gone through, what their life experience is, what made them what they are, and people actually don't have as much control over their lives as I think they think they do, but the circumstances or what's happened to them or why. I look back and how ignorant that was, and I think I've made this evolution to just be a more tolerant. I've always been very loving and nurturing, but a more tolerant, understanding, empathetic person to everyone around me. And it's a much mentally healthier place to be. It's a more loving place to be. And I think it's more in tune or consistent with who I think I am as a person. And I like myself a lot more that way. And go, like and again, coming back to that issue of addiction, there may have been a time when I was 30 going, well, if someone is drinking too much, so they should just stop. Or that's intellectually lazy and it's ignorant. And go, well, no, if they could stop, they would stop.
That's
but
right.
They can't. And the reason they can't isn't their fault. So people get a little bit uncomfortable with this. No, and I think it's just because it makes people feel better to go, well, they should just do that. It's not so simplistic, and I haven't had an addiction issue. I've had certain things have happened in my life, even in the past few years, where I pause and go, you know what, I get it now. I have such a tolerance is even the right word. There's an empathy and a love, and I think that's one of the biggest life lessons that I've ever. That's the answer, and I'm glad that I asked you to pause and come back to it because it came to me during the other questions. So thank you for asking that, and I'm glad I answered it the way I did. Yeah.
I want to, Ryan, thank you for being so candid, honest. I appreciate it. I've interviewed a lot of amazing people in my life, and I have to say that this was really refreshing. And for two Burnaby guys to be sitting here having this conversation, I'm pretty proud of that. A son, a father, a brother, and a leader in our community. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Beedie.
Thank you. Thank you.